Do you know that microbiome, the microbes that dwell in your gut, has a huge impact on your health? Just to name a few conditions that benefit probiotics or have been researched and reported. For example, infantile atopic eczema can be prevented. Supplementation with some bacteria called Bifidobacterium breve, Bifidobacterium longum, Lactobacillus rhamnosus, and Lactobacillus plantarum. And these had shown prevention and also improvement of infantile eczema. Other illnesses would be rheumatoid arthritis that have been affected, diabetes mellitus, even depression can benefit from just supplementation with the microbiome. So this shows that the importance of microbiome cannot be disputed for many illnesses. But then the question is, how can you destroy the microbiome? There are 10 of them that I'm going to talk to you about. So if you like this kind of discussion, please click the like button, and we are going to explore, and later we're going to discuss more about the mechanisms of how the microbiome can lead to dysbiosis as well, phenomenon of leaky gut that affects the population of the microbiome. In this study of probiotics and atopic dermatitis, a very interesting review showed that patients were collected from different parts of the world, like in large study in Norway. The incidence of atopic dermatitis improved just with intake of Bifidobacterium breve M16V and Bifidobacterium longum BB536 over a month prenatally and 6 months postnatally in the development of allergic diseases. This was a positive report. They found that incidence of eczema in these patients that were given supplementation of these particular bacteria was lower in the probiotic group than in the controls in short follow-up. In another study, it was a 2-week study using Lactobacillus plantarum. This is very important. Eosinophil count, a marker of inflammation or allergic reaction. Interferon NC and interleukin 4 were also decreased just by taking these probiotics. So, and this can be done. You can ferment your own yogurt with this specific bacteria. And if you follow my channel, you'll be there. Another particular interesting disease is rheumatoid arthritis. It turns out that even Lactobacillus casei and Lactobacillus acidophilus, this was studied, and the duration of the study was about 28 days. They measured the subjective and the scores for rheumatoid arthritis debility, and they showed simply that using this supplementation improved the subjective discomfort of patients with rheumatoid arthritis. So this is from the study with Lactobacillus casei and Lactobacillus acidophilus over a period of 28 days. In diabetes or metabolism, gut bacteria has a lot of things to do with this metabolism of energy. Take, for example, Lactobacillus gasseri has been shown to improve the metabolism. The naturally occurring GLP-1, which is the same as the peptide that is made into a synthetic peptide called Mounjaro or Ozempic, essentially. Well, this group of peptides, or the GLP-1, increases the ability of the insulin to work. It means it increases insulin sensitivity. Second, the hypothalamus is also, the appetite stimulation is decreased. So you don't have craving for food at all. So you have to be careful to hydrate and also eat some that you can nourish that through the day, especially hydration when you take these synthetic GLP-1. Third mechanism is it delays the emptying of the stomach. So when it does that, the hypothalamus is also directed to say, don't eat, don't crave for food. So there's demand for food and therefore calories. The other mechanism for the GLP-1 is also it metabolizes the visceral fat, especially. That's why a study had been reported that with Lactobacillus gasseri, without diet and exercise, there's a decrease in the visceral fat. So this is very important. What about autoimmune disease development? Autoimmune disease comes from the concept of leaky gut. For example, in Hashimoto's, the way it forms is that when there's a leaky gut, when there's mucin already removed from the intestine, foreign bodies come in and allows also other bacteria like Yersinia, which has a molecular, the same molecular configuration of the thyroglobulin tissue. So what happens? When the Yersinia comes in, lymphocyte produces antibodies to this bacteria, which has a molecular mimicry to the thyroid. So by homing, it travels to the thyroid and dwells in it. It creates inflammation in the thyroid and produces Hashimoto's disease and hypothyroidism. That's a current theory on the development of Hashimoto's. It's the same with the mucin layer, the zonular occludence, and allows gaping of that area and allows entry of the other proteins, such that there's always this dictum in allergology: if you're allergic to one, most likely you're allergic to many, because from that gate that was open in the intestine, other microbes or other proteins and microbes can enter. So this is how important it is. You have to protect your gut, the mucous lining of the gut, so that there will be no phenomenon of leaky gut. Together with that also, the leaky gut always coexists with dysbiosis because certain bacteria produces mucin. Take, for example, Akkermansia. This stimulates the production of mucin, or the mucin layer. That coating is needed in the intestine to protect itself from harmful bacteria and proteins to go to the intestine and to the circulation. There are some bacteria also that would eat a lot of mucin, like Colinzella. So these are the bad bacteria. So microbiome is very important. But back to the topic, how can we offend the mucin layer and also subsequently the bacteria? Number one, antibiotics. That's very obvious. I can only count in my fingers what diseases really need to give antibiotics with. The common colds is virus. Most common symptom of post-nasal drip is usually allergy or virus. That does not need antibiotics. Because when you take antibiotics, it takes years for that to recover the good bacteria. It's almost like throwing an atomic bomb in your gut. So we have to be careful. If you're given a prescription of antibiotic, ask first, is it really needed? What are the proof? Is your WBC increased? Are there blood culture? Are there any specific symptoms associated with this type of bacterial infection? Strep throat, you have to have the antigen, the white count, the typical clinical scenario. Urinary tract infection, for example, not all symptoms of burning sensation when you urinate or dysuria needs antibiotics, because most of the time these are related to the anatomic changes in the urinary tract, especially when you mature. So, and there's only few really that needs antibiotics. One, if you're pregnant. Number two, if you're immunocompromised. But the rest of us, we would have to build up our endurance and resistance so that we can combat the infection, suspected infection. And it also depends on the anatomy, whether it's a lower urinary tract or the upper tract, which is the kidney. So antibiotics is not a warranty, because I've seen one, a 17-year-old boy who was given antibiotics just for sore throat. We don't know whether it was really bacterial, but I suspect it was not. Well, the boy developed C. diff, or Clostridium difficile. It develops diarrhea, and then eventually this diarrhea, if it gets worse, becomes infection of the colon, in the colon tissue in itself, and that boy developed abscess. Well, his colon had to be resected, and a 17-year-old, if you have a colostomy bag coming out from your abdomen, is not good. So antibiotic cannot be underestimated in the causation of microbiome microbiome dysbiosis. What about diet? The microbiome needs fiber. Need the fiber. Humans doesn't need the fiber. It is that you need to eat the fiber for the bacteria that is dwelling in your intestine. If there's low fiber, there's increase in the bad bacteria that also feeds on the mucin layer, like Collinsella. So the more there will be more leaky gut. Fiber, which is prescribed at 40 grams per day of fiber, is needed in the fermentation by the bacteria to produce short-chain fatty acid, especially butyrate. There's three: butyrate, propionate, and acetate. But the butyrate is very important in terms of the healing of the gut. It stimulates the production of mucin to coat the intestine, so there will be no leaky gut or other proteins coming in. High fiber diet, get your 2 cups of vegetables daily, chia seed, a lot of fibrous fruit. Make sure you eat the whole fruit and not the juice part. Don't throw away the fiber. You need the fiber. High sugar. Why is sugar always the enemy? Because the sugar fuels fast-growing microbes, especially also fungus like Candida. It allows the flourish of opportunistic bacteria in the gut. And as I said, the yeast also is that directly also. It decreases the short-chain fatty acid production. Less butyrate, less protection to your intestine. So you don't juice the fruit because, number one, you're losing the fiber. Number two, you're overdosing yourself with fructose because 1 glass of fruit juice probably you need like 4 oranges to a cup of fruit juice. I make it myself, especially in Spain. We're talking about sugar. Lack of exercise also affects that. In this paper, exercise-induced modulation of gut microbiota in individuals with obesity and type 2 diabetes, a systemic review and meta-analysis, this showed that exercise has a great impact on the population of the microbiome, which favors the proliferation of the good bacteria that you really need to maintain your gut health and your microbiome. What about chronic stress? Stress in itself is okay if it's acute, because that's part of living. But if you're chronically stressed and not able to handle the acute stress and let it linger, for example, not being able to talk about your hurt, you need some human connection. You need to connect because studies have shown that human connection is way better than AI or even a stranger talking to you over the phone about something. It increases oxytocin, which favors also the calmness of the brain. It favors increased heart rate. Key. Meditation switches the sympathetic to parasympathetic tone, which favors also the flourish of the microbiome. Studies have shown that people who meditate had better bacterial count that are butyrate producing. Meditate on the unconditional love of Jesus through his passion. It's so healing. It's so revealing that we have to surrender to him. The temple of the Holy Spirit, our body, is what we need to nourish so that we can also elevate our prayers and meditation. Together, that microbiome that you're protecting is also helped with meditation. Sleep. Inadequate sleep is the #1 enemy of humankind. We are sleeping less, and that increases your cortisol level, and it goes back again. Cortisol increases your sugar, sugar decreases your microbial diversity. It also increases your adrenal gland, stimulates the adrenal gland to produce epinephrine and norepinephrine, and it would just be a vicious cycle. You take care of your sleep, whatever the cost would be. If it's weight, you have to lose weight. If there's anxiety, deal with it. There are many ways to do that. And in fact, microbiome, the good bacteria, has something to do with your mood. If you nourish the microbiome and feed them well and less sugar, you will feel much, much better. Alcohol, very common. You can drink maybe a red wine, one glass of red wine daily. but not overconsumption, because alcohol in itself can also directly affect the mucin layer as well as kill the microbiome and change. The processed food has all the ingredients that would cause the microbiome to diminish. Take, for example, emulsifiers that you put in ice cream. Emulsifiers in the form of polysorbate 80 and also the carboxymethyl cellulose. Also in the list would also be lecithin as an emulsifier. Think about a liquid with oil. You cannot mix it. You need an emulsifier. Most of the emulsifier that you would think of would destroy the gut. It would destroy the layer, the mucin layer, and allow this mucin layer to be disrupted, causing gut permeability, increased gut permeability, or known as leaky gut, and allows entry of the proteins and other bacteria that can produce consequent illness like diabetes, Hashimoto's, celiac disease, and all those. So in essence, the gut health, especially the gut lining, the microbiome, you need to nourish that. Did I mention about the herbicides and pesticides? Those are things also that needs to be attended to. Be aware of your environment. Eat organic food, away from probiotics, the antibiotics that they feed, and also hormones, because that can affect your food intake, and herbicides and pesticides that might linger in the vegetables. The best would be to grow your own vegetables wherever you are. You can do it in pots. That's like what I'm doing here with my onions. So, practical things. At this point, if you like this video, please consider subscribing and sharing. This will help us proliferate or share our ideas to many people. In the end, medicine cannot live alone. Medicine has to converge with faith. The center of all this health is really unconditional love, meditation, and the passion of Christ. The microbiome calms down, and the mind also calms. All these things, a comprehensive approach is needed. This is Dr. Raul Enad from Cadenza Medical Clinic. If you have any comments, please drop a note so that we can discuss and make suggestions on what your questions would be for your next video. Thank you very much.